Right, welcome back. Last time we went up against France. As you can see by pretty much no border change, this did not go exceptionally well. Although I did manage to salvage a couple provinces out of the war. Poland is looking really bad at the moment. I also cleaned up Latvia's borders. Now I can't do anything to change province borders, which look awful by default. But it certainly looks better than it did before. And that actually marks pretty much my planned extent for my own territory. I would like to have these two Slovak provinces for myself, and maybe also the Hungarian provinces. I did plan on eventually unifying the HRA, but... long-term plans. Yeah. It'll be a while for those. I've also been busy trying to improve the economy and whatnot, and preparing for the eventual spawning of the Enlightenment. I actually have most of the conditions fulfilled. Well, years at least 1700, there's not exactly much I can do with that. However, the province has to have a university and an arts center. It must be connected to the capital. It has to be Renaissance and casual literacy present. That one's not hard. If I go well, and then education level at least 60, which I'm working on. I've raised the education budget. If you look at Renaissance, the only place that's you can even consider to be part of Europe that doesn't have it is Circassia. Circassia's territory. Casual literacy probably won't have spread quite as far. But you never know. Until you look. Which lag is giving me a moment. Okay, it's actually spread further. So yeah, those two limitations are not an issue for me. So yeah, I've got several provinces that are capable of doing so. Because I have several universities, several art centers, and pretty much all of the provinces with art centers happen to have a university of some kind in place. Alright, now I finally have the points for this. Fast negotiations. Sometimes the key to closing a trade deal is to be the quickest. We need to ensure that our merchants are able to have the deal done. And so that provides plus 5% of global trade power, and as a finisher, I get an extra merchant, and merchants provide plus 0.3 more trade power. Currently, they only provide I think they might have updated, I don't know. It's either 0.8 or it was, and it will be 1.1, or it was 0.5, and now it's 0.8. Anyway, Mongolia trade node is nothing compared to the Xinjiang trade node, so I'll just transfer trade power here. I'm aware I probably won't have much trade power here, because caravan power doesn't provide much. However, there seems to be a similar amount of trade power in the Mongolia node. Maybe somewhat less. Say trade power here totals to about 400. Maximum 500? It's not that much of a difference. At least in trade power. In how much money there is, it's a lot bigger of a difference. Total trade value, well, total value in this node is about 54. Here, it's barely more than 6.5. It's taking a minute, so I can check my own. Yeah, it immediately increased, so normally it's 0.5, now it's 0.8 for me. So, I normally don't make a habit of revealing when I'm recording something, since I have my recording schedule and I prefer to not talk too much about it. But this happens to be recorded a couple days after Victoria 3 was announced. Of course, I also was recording 2 days ago. That was, well, Wednesday's episode number 22? Yeah, 22. Cash. Yeah. However, I only saw the announcement in the evening. Well, it was when I happened to be browsing the Victoria 2 subreddit. And I have to tell you, it looks great. There's so many interesting things about it. I mean, sure, it's the graphics update. It's good idea. Always. Among the things I really like is how the political system is set, it looks like it will be set up. Because it allows you to... Because, sure, the idea that you don't have any real parties seems a little bit off. But, honestly, that's my only complaint. It just feels so different from usual. Because of the simple fact that you're dealing with interest groups. Similar to the estates. Though not the same. You invite certain interest groups into the government. And depending on how powerful they are, the more capable your government is of doing things. However, put in too many interest groups and will impact the legitimacy of your government. Dictatorships tend to have a low legitimacy game. Well, dictatorships and other absolute forms of government, like absolute monarchy, tend to have low legitimacy gain, so they can only rely on one or two interest groups. Whereas the more democratic ones, especially a parliamentary republic, are able to include a vast number of interest groups before the legitimacy starts to actually tick down. Additionally, what your government can do is dependent on the interest groups. You no longer need 50% of the upper house in order to pass a reform. Instead, if one of your interest groups is willing to pass a specific reform, you can start working on that reform. Now, it will still take time. The fewer interest groups in your government that are willing to back this, the longer it will take. However, because of the way the because, multiple interest groups on parliamentary democracies, as well as other forms of democracy, although less so. Other forms of democratic... I'm moving anyway. I'm rambling a bit here. Since they have a large number of interest groups, they have a large capability of passing laws, although it will take time. Whereas a dictatorship, which is reliant on one, maybe two interest groups, can pass things very quickly, but only certain things. That, along with a whole lot of other things, sounds incredibly interesting, and I honestly can't wait to see how it will turn out. The Enlightenment has begun, so not with me. Come on, my education level just reached the requirement. Okay, bring it back down to 6. I don't need to increase it to education level 7. Right. Where is it? Italy. Could be worse. At the very least, this one is guaranteed to have an art center, and it's also regional, and also Catholic, so it's gonna have not that difficult of a time spreading to Slovakia and Austria. And from there, it can spread to Prague. Praha. And then to the rest of Europe. Oh yeah, I probably should grab tech. Steam engine. Steam engines were devices that could produce force from heating water with burning coal. At first, seen as little more than curiosities, in 1712 the Newcomen steam engine was used to pump water from a mine. Other inventions soon followed. Steam engines became more powerful, safer, and more common. Within a generation, the first steam-powered factory would be built. But not quite yet. Plus 2 states. Steering wheels. The first ship steering wheel was introduced around 1703, replacing the extremely inefficient whipstaff. It allowed pilots to turn ships much more accurately than before. They corrupt officials. Plus 25 to colonial range, plus 100 to trade range, plus 0.25 naval morale. The next one is, I think, Pikes. Pikes retired. The effectiveness of bayonets and the reliability and availability of muskets meant that dedicated pikemen were now superfluous on the battlefield. Able to only fight in close quarters, the pikemen were simply not as useful as having another gun in the regiment. Soon armies began to phase out their last pike units, resulting in armies made up entirely of musketeers. Plus 2 to combat with, plus 0.1 infantry shock, fire, artillery shock, unlocks the next level in forts. So yeah, they weren't kidding about the steam engines having been created before, but just saying as idle curiosities. There was one made in ancient Greece, or maybe not ancient Greece, but I think it was during the time Rome occupied Greece. They actually made a steam engine. However, you basically just put water in a little sphere and it had 2 little vents, and then the sphere was suspended over a fire. You lit the fire, and then the water would turn to steam, causing the little ball to spin. That was all it did. It was just seen as a toy. Nothing more, nothing less. And honestly, it kind of was. There was no way to know how much further it could go. And boy, could it go far. As we now know today. This used to be Novgorod's. I think that's... Is that Nizhny Novgorod up there? Yeah. Can't imagine it being anything else. Yeah, Novgorod has finally died. In a display of contempt for order, an Enlightenment philosopher has loudly voiced criticisms of our kingdom in the public sphere. While it is abundantly clear to anyone that our ways of doing things are superior to anything found elsewhere on the continent or in the world, it is simply not good enough for this philosopher. We could have ignored the criticism, of course, but for some reason people seem to be listening to the philosopher and agreeing with certain points. Let's save a few choice reforms, calm the critics. I've got points to burn anyway, and I would prefer not to lose stability. However, something this minor. Now, if it involves removing a reform, not a reform, but a privilege from, say, the greater nobles, now that's a stab loss I can deal with. Yeah, not too much happened today. So, I haven't declared war at all, so my own personal borders haven't changed. That's not to say things haven't changed at all, though. Among the most important ones is that Poland is continuously losing territory, thanks to rebels. But it remains to be seen how much. Also important is that Novgorod no longer exists. Nizhny Novgorod has picked up the last of it. Tunis seems to be taking over the Sahara, at least the outer tribal zones of the Sahara. Oh, there's a second colonial nation here, Guatemala. Interesting. Yeah. Beyond that, not that much over here. Oh. Okay, yeah, that's pretty big. I didn't see it until just now, but Zhao has managed to annex Ming. That's terrifying. Alright then. Oh, that's... At the very least, that put me third on the list. Now that's... I think it was either... Yeah. Whoever was second no longer exists. Zhao has 16,000 development. Isn't that just great? Yeah, first on the list is an impossible dream for anyone that's not China. Yeah. Mostly what happened for me, though, is that I've been focusing on developing cities. Specifically, thanks to the fact that I have trade ideas, I can now build banks, which will raise trade power, urban gravity, tax income, trade value, and production efficiency. It doesn't really do too much to the economy, however, the increase in trade power has been helpful in harnessing more and more trade money. I've also grabbed the last idea, for trade ideas, in order to get another merchant, and I sent him off to Xinjiang to trade in China. Yep. I basically built a big chain from Xinjiang all the way to Ruthenia, although about half the value. Yeah, I get less than half the value from these nodes. I would have to expand really far, though, in order to make sure more of the trade goes towards me. Heck, I'm barely even willing to expend myself past Ruthenia. There's only so far I'm willing to go. I also went ahead and started focusing on upgrading forts. I don't have any of the max level forts yet because I forgot to actually do the previous time forts upgraded, I forgot to do that, so I'm playing a bit of catch up. I've also been working on roads too, and to a lesser degree working on city buildings. For example, this city now has max level production and trade buildings, or well, max, based upon currently unlocked technology. Still another 50 years until I can get to steam factories. Oh, one last thing. The Enlightenment has spawned. But not with me, it spawned in Italy, in Ferrara. However, it is spreading to my own cities, thanks to art centers we're in. But this will take time. Ooh, meritocracy is spreading too. At the very least, it's present in Praha now. Must have gotten there from here. First province in Central Europe to have it. In fact, it happened so recently that it has not had the time to update with art center spread. Yeah, the last two institutions. They're almost here. Alright. I'll see you again next time. Until then.